So before we start the show, I'll let you know about Cocotropic. This stuff is amazing. One of our best sellers. And I had some this morning because today I'm officially going off coffee for a while. In the mornings, I think I've been getting adrenal fatigue, not been feeling so great. I've been coming to my office and just having no motivation to work. My stomach's been bothering me. And today I did Cocotropic, a little bit of butter, a dash of xylitol, not even enough to notice sweetness. And you could obviously do Zevia or whatever you want. Not Zevia, stevia. Or you could just do it straight plain, right? Unsweetened. I feel like my brain thought I was drinking coffee, but my taste buds realized it wasn't. I can really dig it. I really dig it. I can get used to doing this. I don't want to say that I'm going to quit coffee forever, but I think I'm definitely going to quit my daily morning coffee cold brew routine that has just been too consistent. And Cocotropic is amazing to do that. Now, there's also times where I'll do decaf maybe, and then add Cocotropic and blend it up that way. That's another strategy I'm going to try. Where I get a little bit of caffeine from the decaf and a little bit of caffeine from the Cocotropic. But my days of needing that morning cold brew, using that to wake up versus using the sun or going outside, those days are over. So I'm super happy with this. We've had this product for a long time, and I've always kind of oscillated in and out of how often I use it, but it's a bestseller for a reason. People love it, and I highly recommend it. So you can actually get a bag over at wildfoods.co and use code WildCEO for 12% off, and I hope you do. This show, video, podcast, is going to go on the Sovereign Human podcast, my new show. I'm going to post this on all my channels as well because this is a topic that is applicable to everybody. So everybody should watch this video. It's going to start off with this quote. It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Jiddu Krishnamurti. He was an Indian, I guess you could say philosopher, super smart dude. And that quote is just something that I regularly remind myself of. And it's something we should all be aware of and remind ourselves of. We're going to talk about this today. And the reason that this is going to go on the Sovereign Human podcast, which is a show about protecting your wealth and sovereignty from government incompetence through Bitcoin mindset and understanding free markets, as well as how to be a first principles thinker. I want you to learn and understand, but also teach your kids about Bitcoin, fiat dollars, governments, freedom of speech, censorship, history, the dangers of socialism and communism, and how those don't understand first principles are bound to make many mistakes in life. Very drastic mistakes, by the way. We'll also sometimes cover evolutionary biology and psychology and human nature because that applies to money, wealth protection, understanding governments, understanding how incentives aren't aligned for politicians and governments the way they are for you. Your incentives and what you want out of life is not the same as what a politician does or what a government does. And a lot of people have no idea why that's the case. So this is a show too because this is a big first principle. Okay. Now, we all feel that need to want to fit in with culture and society and our community. It's evolutionary, right? Humans are tribal creatures. But when the society at large is sick, is backward, we have to check ourselves. We have to be careful that we're not letting those pressures infect our brain and pursuing the wrong things because everyone else is doing that. You could call this iconoclastic thinking, thinking differently from everyone else. What I'm seeing in 2020, 2021 is that we're having probably the most brutal us versus them we've had in years. It's creating tribalism. It's creating racial divide. It's creating economic divide. The other divide that I'm seeing a lot of is the divide between those that are awake versus those that are either asleep versus those that are woke. So you want to be awake. You want to understand what's going on. Some say calling it taking the red pill, the orange pill. I've heard somebody say the black pill. I don't even know what the black pill is. When you see through the veil of society, and if you see that it is a sick society, as Jiddu is saying, you can start to distance yourself from it. You can start to think independently for yourself. You can start to think critically. To me, that's the most important thing for the modern human. Because you're born into a culture, a society, a government, a jurisdiction that you had no choice in. And most people just end up being a byproduct of their environment. The environment they were born into, they grow up, they live, they die as a byproduct of that environment. A few, though, challenge that. They say, if I'm thinking in first principles and I'm thinking for myself and I'm thinking clearly, what you're telling me doesn't make any sense. What you're telling me goes against my innate belief into what is probably natural law. And that's what you see a lot with government and control and censorship and all the things that power tries to do to manipulate you to do the things it wants you to do. Fortunately, the internet is going to be an erosion of consolidated power structures because of the decentralized nature, the inability to take it down, the inability to truly censor it or get rid of it through guns and the traditional means of warfare that have been used for 10,000 years to control other humans. The internet and now Bitcoin are the two things that are going to bring more sovereignty, freedom, and prosperity and they're going to erode away control, and they're going to bring equality to all through free markets, through innovation, through technology, and through the free sharing of ideas. That's why I do this content all the time, is because I'm trying to wake people up. I'm trying to bring them over to understanding how things work, get them to question the mainstream narrative, get them to actively ignore the news and politicians, because at the end of the day, none of that matters, and they're just lying to you anyways. And even when they think they're telling the truth, they're lying because they're not effective at what they do. And even when they make promises, even if they have the best intentions, as they say, the path to hell is paved by good intentions. That's the perfect summary of government in a quote. So let's talk about what the average person is right now. So if our society is sick, what does that actually mean? Well, let's go through this list here. You get this article, colin.coach. I'll also add it to the Better Human newsletter. It goes out every Saturday. You can also get on that over at colin.coach, and you will get the Sovereign Human podcast and episodes I'm going to release on a regular basis is going to go there as well, okay? So you might be actually seeing this before the podcast is even live. You might be seeing this on YouTube because I'll post it today. Our society's sick. The majority of people are overweight. Most people believe what the mainstream media tells them to. Most form their ideas about voting from whatever politician sounds good on TV or in a speech. Most listen to talking heads on TV for their health advice. Most blindly trust what their doctors say. Most believe the rich are evil while not seeing the irony of doing so from the very comforts the rich gave them. Most people believe that animal foods are bad for you, while the low-fat junk foods that they eat keep them overweight and unhealthy. Most have little understanding of history. Most have little curiosity to learn and grow. Most are walking, talking, pleasure-seeking machines and have no idea why they do what they do. Most, as Thoreau said, live lives of quiet desperation. And this is where most people are at right now. Now, this doesn't mean I'm going to write them off. That's why I put out content like this. If you're listening to this and you're nodding your head, you already get it. You've probably already been red-pilled or orange-pilled or black-pilled or whatever the hell those pills are. You already are awake, or at least starting your awake journey. But what about, your parents or your uncles, your friends, your families, or your partners? What about them? Statistically speaking, it's unlikely that they are awake at all. But again, this doesn't mean they're hopeless, right? We can't be pessimistic in this because that creates more tribalism and more divide. And the reality is many people will change for the better. It might take them 10 years, 5. It might take the collapsing of the US dollar for them to wake up and finally distrust government. It might take their pension to be poof, gone. Because for years they thought it'd be there, but then the government and Wall Street gambled it away. Unfortunately, most people are the turkey. The turkey believes the farmer loves him because every day the farmer shows up with food. You love me. You have my best interest at heart. Gobble, gobble, gobble. And then Thanksgiving comes around. And the turkey is like, oh, shit. That's what was going on. This metaphor applies to a lot of things in life. Risk, preparedness, money, wealth, everything. But generally, the way I think about it is most people stick their head in the sand because that's easier. It's more comfortable. They don't prepare. They don't plan. They don't enlighten themselves. They don't wake up. And then they're sleepwalking through life, doing what everyone else is doing. Then the whole thing collapses. Either their life is gone because they make a tragic mistake and they get heart disease or cancer, or they don't prepare and some other tragic thing happens to them, or they lose everything because they didn't prepare their finances and they weren't aware to what was going on. Most people live lives of comfort. That is a form of quiet desperation in their sleep. That's being the turkey. You think everything is fine because everyone else is doing it. Why not? They're all doing it. I should do it. And then one day you wake up and you're like, oh, shit. Well, that's what was going on. But I have hope. My hope currently is in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be the safe haven. It's going to be a protection of sovereignty. It's how you can take your wealth, your financial energy that you've created in your life, and you can put it in a place that the government can't steal from you, it can't inflate away, and it can't mismanage. It's also likely to be the greatest investment you've ever made. It's an insurance policy. It's a survival tool, and it is a storage of actual wealth to which nothing on the planet can compete. Silver, gold, of which I own and bought a lot of in 2020, and I wish I would have bought more Bitcoin. Real estate, stocks. These things are denominated and privy to the fiat dollar we have, the broken system of Wall Street and derivatives and all this nonsense, the financial gambling that goes on. Bitcoin is a fixed, scarce money supply. It is the highest form of energy conservation the world has ever created, that humans have ever come up with. And it is quite divine. It's like the invention of the wheel or the discovering of fire. The internet was the first thing and is going to go down as one of the greatest inventions of mankind, and one that's going to lead to the most prosperity and sovereignty for more humans. Bitcoin is step 2. It's a way that we can use the internet and the decentralized nature of it to store monetary energy. And that's going to bring sovereignty to more humans, eventually all of humanity. And people have no idea what's in store. The purpose of this content is to get you to send me those DMs where you're like, I just bought $100 in Bitcoin. It gives me goosebumps to hear that, because I see Bitcoin as the most important technology in the world today. It's the most important technology for a lot of reasons, but especially for human sovereignty and freedom. Governments have always controlled the money supply, and they beef up their military, and they use things like propaganda and controlling the media and all these different things to keep you acting a certain way that maintains their power, maintains your ignorance, and keeps you a sleepwalking zombie. Need I really say more? So throughout this and my other content, which you can get out of the Better Human newsletter of colin.coach, please do that. My second hopes would maybe sound selfish, but it's not. I hope the dollar crashes. I hope we get hyperinflation. Now, this is going to be very painful for a lot of people. Like, this is not something that I want to happen. I mean, I have a business. Like, that's going to hurt business. It's going to hurt everybody. But if I had to step outside of my own personal incentives and see what is going to be for the greatest benefit of society, what is going to be the mechanism that's going to wake people up to finally stop with this government reliance and trusting these idiot politicians and government itself, which cannot be effective. What's going to wake people up to that? What's going to erode the power structures of the mainstream media and how they propagandize the masses? The thing that is going to do that I think is the least painful thing, because we don't want World War III or some other really catastrophic thing like that. We don't want like the grid going down for months on end and there being complete chaos and zombie apocalypse. We don't want that. But a dollar collapsing, even if it were to lose 50% of its purchasing power, and then there would be a mad scramble to fix it, and a lot of people that don't deserve to be in the positions of power they have would be pushed aside. Certain banks and things and zombie companies that should have died a long time ago would finally die. We would burn away the undergrowth in the forest, which is how you actually prevent forest fires. And that's why a lot of the mismanagement in California in these forest fires is because they weren't doing that, and because there's other political nonsense around that. Every system has to cull the weak for it to maintain and be an anti-fragile system. That is the property of anti-fragility, is you have to be stressed continually and you grow and adapt as a result. And if you remove that stress, if you try to paper over that stress, if you try to artificially mitigate that stress because you don't want certain pains to come about, or you don't want a certain financial depression or recession or whatever, which is what the Fed, the government, these people have been doing for years now, is they've been trying to prop things up by artificially managing them, band-aid them, kick the can down the road. I believe that the dollar collapsing and we having some kind of hyperinflation is going to, while painful, wake people up. Maybe it will finally wake them up to take their health into their own hands. Maybe it'll wake them up to all these things. Maybe they'll start watching people on TV. Maybe mainstream will just completely die. Maybe the truth will finally come out. The worst thing for America is going to be if things maintain the way they are, but they just get a little bit worse every year. That's how you're going to go from, as of right now, 1.5 million Americans die a year from modern disease, all preventable from lifestyle, by the way, all the modern preventable diseases, respiratory illness, disease, cancer, etc. That's going to go to 2 million, then 2.5, then 3, then 5, then 10. And it's just going to be this massive, crazy epidemic. It already is. But it's the one that everyone ignores because it requires personal responsibility. Instead, they want to blame people and say, wear your mask, take your vaccine. They want a literal Band-Aid approach. It's asinine. It really is. And again, it goes back to that quote, we live in a sick society. Don't try to conform to something that's sick. Don't aspire to be something that's sick and broken. So this is what you start doing right now. Some first principle actions, take right now. If anything on this list you're not doing, do it. Start it right now, tomorrow, today, after you close this out. Buy your Bitcoin. Gemini or Coinbase, super easy. Just buy it, hold it, don't sell it. Cut out processed food, sugar, grain, seed oils, and corporation cooked food. Stop eating out of a package. You should have raw ingredients, throw it in a pan or an oven, cook it, add a lot of salt until it tastes good, and then eat it and enjoy it, and then watch your health flourish. Get outside for 30 minutes a day. Walk, move, yoga, whatever, garden, read books. Become curious, level up your knowledge, not from short bits of social media content and mainstream narrative, whatever. Go deep into the best books of history. Learn first principles. Learn how to think for yourself critically. Help people. Volunteer. Offer your advice or opinion, like whatever. Just help people. Stop being so selfish. Help yourself. Get rid of that imposter syndrome, needing permission, whatever. You can do whatever you want. Try things, fail, experiment. Be the student, cultivate beginner's mind. Improve yourself. And then lead those around you through these different endeavors. That's my hope for you. And if we do enough of that and we have enough awake humans, the masses will catch on. The masses is just this very slow moving ship that's being pulled in one direction by mainstream media and politics and comfort and whatever. If we can get enough tugboats, enough of them kind of surrounding that ship, we can kind of steer that ship in a better direction. So you can be a tugboat. I can be a tugboat. Collectively, 5 million tugboats can move 300 million, on that huge barge, that huge ship. That's how we got to think about this. But the only way you can be a tugboat is by leading by example. You have to get better results, make more money, become fit, be a paragon of virtue, of mindset, of knowledge. Be curious, be willing to fail and do things and look dumb. People will respect you and admire you for it. That's going to be it for this episode. Get on the Better Human newsletter, colin.coach. I'll be putting episodes here for the Sovereign Human podcast. You can subscribe to that on iTunes, Spotify. And finally, a quote from Naval. If you eat, invest, and think according to what the news advocates, you'll end up nutritionally, financially, and morally bankrupt. Take some action today. I'll see you in the next one.